When you heal your gut, you heal your immune system, things work. It's like I feel like a normal person for the first time in my life. And I'm 62 now. I've never been healthier. I've never been healthy. It's nothing short of miraculous. It's so freeing. I mean, just not having inhalers. I used to have 20 inhalers, stashed in different places. And I always had one in my hand for runs. We all look back and go, oh gosh, what would have happened? But, things happen in their own time for their own reason. And I'm just blessed and feel amazed. And you, Shawn, and the Revero group has been a lifeline for me.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Happy Monday. We have I'm very pleased to announce we have Kat we're going to be talking to today. And just for a record, you're in, if I'm not mistaken, you're in Nevada. Is that correct? Nevada.
I am in Nevada. I'm a half an hour east of Lake Tahoe and an hour south of Reno.
Got it. Okay. And you've been. I know you've been in the Revero MeterX community now for several years, and you've just been thriving so far. So I guess for those who don't know, just give us a little of your background, because I don't know it all, quite honestly. So I don't know, you weren't ever plant-based or anything like that, or were you? I don't know.
I did about a month in the 80s as an experiment, even back in the 80s. There is, it's so healthy. Mm-hmm. And I've been involved in trying to improve my health since the day I was born, practically. So I thought, well, might as well give it a try, and developed horrible, blistering, bleeding eczema rash all over my body because I'm allergic to legumes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm a creative cook. So I made everything out of tofu. And it was pretty funny. So that didn't last very long. From the beginning, I was not breastfed and turned out to be allergic to everything they fed me from the day I was born.
How did that show up? And were you having rashes and breathing issues, or how did that?
Well, to my knowledge, I didn't have the eczema yet. I might have, but they didn't tell me. So what happened was the blood in the stools. So I had the ulcerative colitis from day one, ear infections, and asthma. So back in the day, they just really didn't know any better. They gave me just round after round after round of antibiotics. And then they gave my mother access to steroid injections. So she gave me an injection every month of my life for my first couple of years of life. The antibiotics continued. I ended up just being very susceptible to bronchitis infections. So it was just hundreds. People, I've had functional medicine doctors say, well, have you had any antibiotics? And I start laughing. And they say, well, even a few rounds can disrupt your genetics and your immune system. I said, I've had hundreds of rounds, and the steroids, which I suppose was good to keep me alive when I was, an infant, but didn't do my poor little immune system any good. But at the same time, I was just born to be an athlete. So by the time, it was maybe when I'm not sure how old I was when they finally invented rescue inhalers. Oh boy, did I get hold of those and use the snot out of them. It was like, I'm free. So like in junior high school and high school, I got doctors' excuses to not do PE because I didn't like team sports. So I just had my inhaler in my hand the whole time, got dressed, went out to the track and ran. And I loved running. So I just run on the track and just suck on my asthma inhaler just to keep going. And I did that for years. And then every once in a while, they invented the steroid inhalers, and I'd get an attack that was bad enough to where I'd need to be on the steroid inhalers. And then every once in a while, I'd be hospitalized. If I'd get an influenza or a really bad bronchial infection, I had to go to the hospital because I simply couldn't breathe and the medicines wouldn't work. And so, they give you the steroids and the adrenaline and the nebulizer. And it was crazy. And then at the same time, I was battling the ulcerative colitis. And I just remember, from the time I can remember, being on the toilet in tears. And, just all by myself. And my parents, they're helpless. They don't know what to do. It was really hard. But I persevered and I just kept going. I was very much into sports. I had a horse, I rode, I played tennis, I rode my bike, and I just relied on the medications to keep me going. Eventually, I guess it was in my 30s, discovered that if I took enough supplements, that I could mitigate some of the symptoms without as many drugs. And so I did that. And that was my first husband, was a brilliant nutritionist. And we were in the business of consulting and nutritional supplements. And that became my thing. And it was hundreds of pills and hundreds of dollars. I have to say it was probably, for myself alone, probably $500 a month in supplements that I was taking. It was better, but it wasn't perfect. I still would be hospitalized for the colitis or hospitalized every once in a while for the asthma. And then on top of it, I was still very much into sports. And then I was hospitalizations for sports injuries, which were fun. But I'd rather be hospitalized for that, I think, than bleeding colitis. But it's a better story. But anyway, so then when I was 41, we discovered keto through Dr. Atkins back in the day, we weren't fussy, and it wasn't, I would call it more low carb or ultra low carb. For me, I felt like I needed to stay on 20 grams of carbohydrates or less a day. And I was very strict about that for many years. And that helped a lot. It did mitigate a lot of the symptoms, but there was still times when I had to I was always on the rescue inhaler. I never got off of that. And then at times I'd still have a flare up and have to go on the steroid inhaler. And there were still times when I'd have a flare up of the colitis. And it was just really difficult. Well, with the keto, I had put on some weight and lost 30 pounds very quickly. It was like in 2 months, I lost 30 pounds, and that was marvelous, but still struggled after that point. It was always a struggle with a 10-pound range. I was always tracking my carbohydrates and tracking my calories, and I had to be at 1,200 calories. Or I'd, gain weight. And it was very, very frustrating. And then it was interesting. Let's see. Well, then in 2008, I was diagnosed. I started having some very strange issues going on and was diagnosed with Lyme disease because I spend most of my life outdoors. And people think you can't get Lyme disease up here in Tahoe. And yes, you can. And so I had remembered a bite, and I'm very susceptible to mosquito bites. I'm very allergic to them. And I ended up with a bite on my thigh that I thought was a spider bite. And I got very sick for 24 hours, like flu-like symptoms, and didn't think anything of it. I thought it was a spider bite because nobody knew about Lyme back then, and especially out west here. And then I finally got years later, well, maybe about 4 years later after the bite, is when I got diagnosed with the Lyme, with some very odd symptoms, and was fortunate enough to be diagnosed by a doctor who told me absolutely, positively, do not take antibiotics. I took that to heart because I already knew that antibiotics had pretty much destroyed me anyway. So I did not, but I treated it on my own for 5 years. I was with my new husband at the time. We spent a lot of time traveling. It was very, very challenging. It was a nightmarish. I look back at my journal entries and it was really heartbreaking. The things I went through for those years was really awful. And we can go into more if you want. But what ended up happening was we decided to take off. We have a 4-wheel drive Volkswagen van again, and we decided to drive from here to the tip of South America and living in the bus. And then also do the top of Alaska. So we did all of the Americas together in this Volkswagen. And I was pretty scared because of my health issues, and I'm fortunate enough to have a clinic here in Reno that does, Dr. Fong does homeopathic Lyme treatments. So I went and had those. They're really expensive. and really hard. They're homeopathic, but the push on the immune system is very drastic. So the treatments, I would drive in an hour every day, get a new IV started, have the treatments, and try to beat the clock home because the reactions start usually in 45 minutes. So I'd have the immune reaction 15 minutes driving, which is intense shaking, fever. It was pretty, sometimes throwing up. It was awful and expensive. And I had to do that every year. And my Lyme doctor, Dr. Fong, was always surprised why I had to continue doing them. And to me, my theory was that I do continue to spend time outside. I am allergic to mosquitoes. They love me. I'll end up with 50 or 100 bites that are inflamed. And I think my immune system would just get confused. It was just too much. And then it would forget about fighting the Lyme disease, the bugs, because the whole point of the treatments was to wake up my immune system enough to fight the bugs, which is a great thing. It's a great treatment to have your own immune system fight it. And it would work, but only for the year until I got my next, sometimes 6 months, I would have to get them. But it worked. We did our trip. We did the South America trip. The treatments worked, but I still had the asthma. I still had the colitis. There were times camping in the worst situations where I'm out in either the freezing cold or the bugs or whatever, trying to dig a hole and go to the bathroom with the bleeding and the cramping and the crying. And I'd be out there for 45 minutes, sometimes come home like I'm an ice cube or whatever, or wet or bitten up. So it was hard. I kept on doing it, but it was very challenging. In the meantime, then we came home from the trip, and there were times in the trip, I got to say, it was eat carbs or die. And so I did. I broke my rules. I ate some carbs and I came home. I even had, I completely forgot during the trip, I got a virus. I got bronchitis that turned into pneumonia. So we're traveling down through Peru, and these are really remote places and remote clinics. So I go to this crazy clinic in the middle of nowhere and get some sort of antibiotics, and then go to the next town and get more antibiotics. So I was a month sick on the road, and sometimes at 16,000 feet elevation where I couldn't breathe. I had the pneumonia. It was just, and I'm strong and robust enough to keep, that's always been my thing, is that I keep going, but it was pretty hard. So we flew home from Santiago. We left the van in Santiago, flew home for a month so I could get a PICC line and antibiotics to get rid of this. I think it was a pseudomonas infection that I'd gotten. And then we flew back. And I was fine. I carried on with the trip. And from that point, the trip was great. And I wasn't sick anymore, was even able to take some runs at high, like 14, 16,000 feet. I could go for short runs, finished up the trip really well, but came home and discovered that I needed thyroid medication. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the carbs that was triggering, that was causing the thyroid thing from the traveling. So anyway, so now I'm on the asthma medicine. I've really rejected any kind of colitis medicine. Well, I had done lots of them, the suppositories and the steroids. And at that point, I was just done with it. In the meantime, I've listened to health podcasts and read health books every day of my life. I went on to become, after my life with my nutritionist husband, I went on to become a personal trainer and then later become a posture alignment therapist with Egoscue. And that helped me with, the sports injuries and to keep going from that point of view. But then we still with a colitis. So I was hooked in with a functional medicine doctor over on the East Coast who was very good. And he put me on a low FODMAP diet. And that worked for a while. And it was great. And then we went, no nightshades. And then we did this and we just tried this. And it's back and forth. And it's an expensive, everything he does. The testing is expensive. His time is expensive. And always limited results. And in the meantime, I'm listening to all these podcasts and Carnivore is out here. I keep hearing about carnivore. Now, I absolutely crave and love red meat and always have. And I've always thought and told, I tell my husband, if I don't have red meat at least every other day, I am not happy. So I'm putting all these pieces together. And I finally asked this doctor, I said, what would you think of just going pure carnivore? He said, I think for you, that's a really good idea. He said, we haven't made any progress with anything else. And I think you're disciplined enough to do it. And so that was when I met you guys for the first time. It was my 60th birthday. It was May 7th of 2020. I'll never forget it. That was the gift I gave myself for my birthday. Oh my gosh. I don't even know. It's like, it's unbelievable what happened to me. From the day I started, it was like within, I don't know, a day or two, I started noticing something really odd. I was able to take what I think of as the first full breath of my entire life, because no matter how much I run, no matter how much I work out and lift weights, and I think I'm doing fine and I'm not on any medicine, this is great, I was never taking a full breath. Literally within the first week of eliminating plants, I was breathing, and it was remarkable. And it took me a year to get over what that felt like, that phenomenon of, wow, this is crazy. So the colitis cleared up. It still leaves me speechless sometimes to think about what happened just by getting rid of foods. About a month and a half after I started carnivore, we went off somewhere camping, and I got probably 50 mosquito bites. They were festering and big and reactive. And I thought, here it comes. It takes about 2 weeks after the bites to start getting the Lyme reactions. I never did. I never got any indication. There was nothing that happened. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And so that went on all summer. I continued to be outside. I continued to get bites. And I have to say now, 2.5 years into it, just on the mosquito bite end, I'm no longer as reactive either. I'll get a bite and it'll get, it's almost like normal people, where instead of lasting for a week or 2 weeks with the welt, it'll maybe last a couple of days. And that's shocking too. So it's just the healing. And I think the healing to my gut, when you heal your gut, you heal your immune system, things work. It's like I feel like a normal person for the first time in my life. And I'm 62 now. I've never been healthier. I've never been healthy. I mean, I look back on my journals because I've always journaled my health, have health notes and journals and logs. There was always a list of things that I needed. I'm focusing on getting rid of, my affirmations. I no longer have asthma. I want to get rid of the back pain and the asthma and the anxiety, the depression. There was always things on a list that I needed to overcome, and I'd overcome maybe 1 or 2 of them, but then 3 or 4 or 5 of them would come up, and I'd chase them down. And I honestly can say right now, I have nothing wrong. And I cannot believe I'm saying that. It's nothing short of miraculous. So anyway, that's my story.
Wow. Well, that is a heck of a lot, Kat. And a couple things I wanted to just question about. So, I mean, you'd been on all of these, medication, particularly the steroids and, the injections as a kid, the steroids through inhalers and whatnot. Did that have any impact on your bone health? Because typically we know that can lead to significant osteoporotic stuff. Have you been assessed for that? And I don't know if carnivore has helped that in any way.
Absolutely. And yes, I was osteoporotic early because I'm also small. Mm-hmm. I went through menopause at 45 years old, and I'm very small. And I had all the steroids. So yes, I was osteoporotic I think I was osteopenia at 39 and osteoporotic by the time I was mid-40s, and was told I had to take medications. And I said no. I had a doctor that insisted I hadn't been retested, because every time I got tested, I'd cry. And it was really depressing. And I knew I would never take the medications. So I stopped getting tested, and I had another doctor I got. It was a mistake of a doctor. He was a pill pusher and insisted I had with a capital HAD to take this horrible medication, which I looked up, and everybody the reviews on it ruined my life. You have to stay on. Anyway, it was awful. So I came back to him and I said, I'm absolutely not going to take this. And I said, you might as well test me and just see where it is. He said, no, you don't need a test. You need the pills. I said, no, I'll get the test. Well, 9 years after, and I had started lifting heavier. I went to CrossFit because as a personal trainer, I was always a functional trainer and did a lot of high rep, a lot of volume, high rep, lower weights, never lifted that heavy, but was still always a runner. But I decided with the CrossFit, I was going to focus on lifting heavier and jumping. Well, when I was out running, I'd jump up on boulders or logs and jump off and do a lot more high impact in jumping and lifting. And so by the time I got retested, this guy finally agreed to give me the test. I got tested and I had not progressed. This was pre-carnivore. But I had not progressed in 9 years. I was exactly where I was, just from the heavier lifting and the jumping. And so I was pleased with that. And I am very tempted to get retested now. I haven't yet. It's on my list to do. I'm wondering, I'm thinking maybe of waiting another year on carnivore, give it like a full 3 years, 3.5 years on carnivore to retest, because from what I understand, Shawn, am I right that it takes a long time to show any change in the bones?
Well, yeah, it's not going to be a fast process. Yeah, it's something, over a couple of years for sure.
Yeah, so I will retest, and I would not be surprised at all if I've reversed it on carnivore, because I think you have to, with that much protein and eating connective tissue and just being healthier all the way around. I would not be surprised at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. And I've seen it on a number of people now. A number of particular women have seen significant reversal of osteoporosis or osteopenia on this. So I wouldn't be surprised. So it'll be interesting to see how that happens. You mentioned protein. So what, because the inevitable question always is, what do you eat on a carnivore diet? Are you eating, I don't know. You just tell me what you're eating. How's that? I
started out needing the variety pack. I needed to have several kinds of meat on my plate to transition. I'd have some beef, some chicken, maybe a little pate or something. And that was great for transitioning. And then as time went on, I found I did not feel as well on chicken, pork. Fish to me is just a side dish. It'll never fill me up. It'll never satisfy me. If I have it, it has to be along with beef. But now I am pretty much ruminant meat only, because I feel the best on that, and I can eat just beef. My favorite is, believe it or not, chuck. I just buy the chuck. Yep. I cut it down into steaks. I grill it on a really hot grill, medium rare inside, and that's my absolute go-to favorite. But I also buy whole ribeyes and cut them up into steaks. So I love ribeyes. We buy a half a cow every year from a neighbor. We get 2 lambs and a half a cow from our neighbors. And we go through every morsel, every bit of the half cow and 2 lambs. Plus I supplement at Rayleigh's or Costco with the ribeyes and the chuck. Yeah. So I could eat as much as you put in front of me, but I still do need to watch. Calories do matter for me. I can gain weight pretty easily. I'm an easy keeper. So for me to stay about a pound, I only weigh, around 105 pounds, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, but around that. I think a pound of meat is really good. It's like 120 grams of protein, 100 grams of fat on average. And that works well for me. I am a chow hound. I could eat 2 pounds if you put it in front of me, but I don't think I need it. And I do just fine with 1 pound.
Hey folks, it's Dr. ShawnBaker here. If you guys are enjoying these success stories, well, you can become your own success story. You can do that by heading over to CarnivoreDiet. You can sign up for a free 30-day trial and get started today. We're looking forward to supporting you. Our community is wonderful, and we'd love to see your success. Now, is it 1 meal a day, 2 meals a day? How do you break that up typically?
2. I get hungry. It's kind of funny. I get hungry in the morning and I try to get to my workout I enjoy fasted workouts. I feel very, very good. It's like a buzz. It feels really good to do a fasted workout. And so I get hungry before my workout, but I really try to push that away and get my workout in first. And then I'll eat somewhere around, on average, between 10 and noon. I'll have a small meal, like maybe 4 or 5 ounces. And I try to load up on fat in the morning. That feels good. And then I like to eat before, like between 3 to 4 o'clock is when I'll eat the rest of my meal, maybe 12 ounces or so of meat at one time then. So 2 meals a day. And then I think I told you the other day, I don't feel full. If I sat down to a normal dinner when my husband does, I could eat a pound and then look around. We're all settled for the night. Look around for something else to eat, snack on. That's the enemy of the weight issue. So if I eat at 3 or 4, then I'm absolutely not hungry by the time my husband sits down and we eat. We're sitting together and done for the day. I'm not hungry at all. That's when my satiation, my satiety receptors go off about dinner time. And that's perfect. And I've discovered that really works for me. Plus, I sleep better if I don't eat later. It affects, sleep, as most people know. If you go to sleep on a big old bunch of meat, that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I find a very similar approach with me. You mentioned you've been a lifelong athlete, Kat. Now, not having to have an inhaler and not having, bleeding ulcerative colitis and all that, how's that affected your ability to run and your enjoyment of running?
It's so freeing. Just not having inhalers. I used to have 20 inhalers, stashed in different places, and I always had one in my hand for runs. I went on a 5-day solo without a cell signal. I was by myself. I did not take an inhaler. And to me, that says it all. That was the most liberating thing I think I've ever done. It was amazing. I didn't worry about the colitis. I didn't worry about the asthma. It was incredible. So yeah, it's been great. My sprints, I do sprints. I'll go out for 15 minutes at a slow, the Maffetone formula, the MAP. Mm-hmm. I'll go at it at my age, it's really low heart rate. It's like 120 or something. I'll go out for 15 minutes at a low heart rate. And then I'll turn around and come back and do as many sprints as I can fit in on the way back. I guess it was a couple months into Carnivore, I noticed that my sprints were way faster. So I don't compete anymore because I find I'm over competitive and I push myself too hard and I don't listen. If I've got a competition on the books, I don't listen to my body enough. If you're having a bad day and things hurt, just don't do it. Just stop. That's how you continue to be an athlete till you're 100 years old. It's like, don't go into that danger zone. But if I've got a ultra race or something on the books, I have to stick to my schedule and I won't listen to my body. So I don't really go to CrossFit anymore because I'm working out with teenagers and I'm trying to compete with teenagers and I push myself too hard. I just do my own thing and I'm always self-motivated. I don't need anything like that to keep going. Like a lot of people need to go to classes or need to have a competition on the books, but I'm pretty self-motivated and don't need it. So yep, that's what I do. I just go out and I just find them. I love it. And I have a gym at the house. I have a gym right here at the house. It's perfect.
Yeah, that's the same thing. A home gym is a real. It makes things very convenient for you. You'd mentioned, you talked to a doctor. He said, "Hey, you might as well just try Carnivore." Have you followed up with him to show you the results and any sort of thoughts on that or how they may have responded to your success?
I did. I emailed him a year into it, and I quit seeing him. But I emailed him a year into it with all the list of things that had changed. And he came back Yay, good for you. But I simply can't recommend it to the rest of my patients because they'd never follow it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And even my ex-husband, who still sees clients for nutrition, well, I'm just not convinced other people could do it. How much is that costing people? Feeling bad and feeling sick or having joint pain or whatever is so much more difficult than giving up a food. That's my perspective anyway. And people all the time, I talked to people the other day, I could never do that. Yeah, you could. If it hurts bad enough, you could. Anybody could. I guess it doesn't hurt bad enough. I don't know.
Yeah, it is interesting. People, say, well, it's not, they'll even say about low carb diets, well, they're not sustainable. And you've got people that have been doing it for 20, 30 years without problem. And, who are you to decide what's sustainable for me or somebody else? And you're very much right. Let me ask you, obviously your quality of life is much better. I mean, I don't think that's questionable. I don't know. Do we talk about your cholesterol levels? Cholesterol levels gone up? I mean, some people it does, some people it doesn't. What's been your experience?
They're the same.
Yeah.
Maybe because I was low carb already for a long time. No, they're perfect. I have low triglycerides, high HDL, total cholesterol is, I don't know, around 200 or so. It's a nothing burger. I now have ditched all doctors. The only one I see is a PA locally who's completely supportive, agrees with everything I'm doing, is surprised about carnivore, but is very, very supportive, gives me any test I want without any questions. I don't carry insurance because I do not want them dictating what I do or don't do. I just pay for things. And fortunately, but I'm telling you, the lack of Lyme treatments and supplements has saved me, I don't know, $20,000 a year.
Wow.
I mean, a lot. And between that and not paying the insurance premiums, I can save up a lot for whatever tests I want. So he even has said, there's no sense in you even ever testing for cholesterol again. You're fine.
Yeah.
You never, just don't even think about it. I'm like, okay, that's good. I like that.
Interesting. Yeah. Let me, I saw a question Charlie's asking, what about, because you do these remote trips. I've heard you said you go out camping and do that. So what do you bring with you to eat? I mean, that's got to be a bit of a challenge, or is it? It may be easy, just some pemmican or something like that.
It's so easy. I have a home freeze dryer.
Okay.
That I got because I grew vegetables. I'm a great grower. I grew vegetables. I fruits, vegetables. I harvested them. I used my freeze dryer. And then when I went carnivore, I went, what am I going to do with this fancy piece of equipment? It's like the size of a washing machine. It's interesting. I thought, well, I'm going to start doing meat. And it's been brilliant. In fact, we bought another Volkswagen, four-wheel drive Volkswagen in Europe. We're storing in Amsterdam for us as our second vacation home. And I'm stressing about how to smuggle freeze-dried meat into Europe. And I'm not exactly sure. I'm not sure how I can live without my freeze-dried meat because that's the best. Jerky is great, but it's not as good as the freeze-dried stuff for me. Anyway, yeah, it's my freeze-dried meat. I take it backpacking. I don't even need a stove. I can eat it without reconstituting it. And I love it. It's great. So yeah, that's what I rely on.
Interesting. And I've never had freeze dried meat. So do you take like a big whole steak and just throw it in the freeze dryer and does it shrink up or what does it do?
No, it doesn't. You cook it first.
Okay.
It's different from jerking. You cook it, then you cut it into smaller pieces. You put it on freeze dried trays. It freezes it down to -40 under vacuum pressure, and then it sucks out all the air out of it. So it looks exactly the same and has the same nutritional profile as when you put it in.
Okay. And then when you eat it, is it frozen? I mean, I guess you thaw it out. I mean, I assume, right?
Well, the freeze dryer dries it.
It dries it, but is it cold? I mean, is it still frozen when you store it in a frozen condition or you store it at room temperature?
Shelf stable. It's dry. Like you've had freeze-dried fruit before, right?
I don't know if I have. Maybe I have. I can't remember.
Foam. It's like styrofoam almost.
Okay.
You have to, if you eat it The way when you pull it out of the bag and you eat it, you have to have it with water because it'll reconstitute in your mouth. It takes all the saliva out, but it's pretty funny. So, but it's great. That's what I rely on.
And is it salted or and I don't know, do you use salt? Do you use electrolytes in your regimen?
Salt. That's an interesting thing. I used to be reliant on all these supplements, including I used to have to take about 8 to 10 potassium pills a day. Mm-hmm. And when I first started carnivore, I felt I still had the cramps a lot. But after a few months, I stopped even having to take the potassium. But I salt my food. When we do off-road racing, I take the freeze-dried meat. I'll take a little bottle of salt. I'll take that running. And I don't take the supplements. I just take the salt. I put it in the palm of my hand and I lick it. So yeah, I do need salt and I use salt and I love it. But that's about all. I take minerals. I did get a flare up. I talked to you, remember back a few months back. I think in January, I had a colitis flare up out of the blue that was scary. Ended up feeling like I needed some minerals. So I started taking some multi-minerals and more magnesium, and that just stopped it. And I haven't had a problem since.
Oh, good. Good to hear.
That's about the only supplements I take anymore.
Now, you'd mentioned, getting meat from Costco and Rayleigh's, which I think is a Kroger affiliate, I think, if I'm not mistaken. You're not focusing on just, grass-finished beef. It's kind of both grain finished, or what are you using as far as your meat? From
the neighbors, the half cow and 2 lambs are all grass-fed, mm-hmm. grass-finished. Mm-hmm. And lovingly raised. And that's my part. And so that's probably 75% of what we eat mm-hmm. is that. And then the supplement, because when you buy the half cow, there's only so much chuck and so much ribeye. Mm-hmm. And you got to supplement. And so I don't have a problem. I've never felt differently. It's better to buy regeneratively raised animals. Mm-hmm. And so I do support that as much as possible. But I'm okay supplementing with the grocery stores.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make a difference for you. And I've heard it many, many times. It seems to be the case. It doesn't seem to make that big of a difference from health outcomes for most people. Some people it does. And then what about organ meats? Are you eating liver once a week or any of those types of things?
I try. And they give me not only the meat, the organ meat from my animals, but the other people who don't want them, they give it to me. But I am still sensitive to histamines. And that can trigger, I could get like cold-like symptoms plus a little bit of the colitis. I can get some mucus in my bowels and some cramping. So I'm careful with it. I'll do it every once in a while. I'm just careful with it. Yeah. And I don't rely on it.
Okay. Yeah, I don't eat it at all. So
I know. I do enjoy it.
I don't enjoy it. The best I can say, and I've tried a lot of them, and the best I can say is that didn't taste horrible. It was like the best compliment. It's never been like, oh, that's so good. It's always been like, oh, it didn't taste awful, but awful as in awful and awful. But so as far as, so your husband, is he carnivore? It doesn't sound like he's completely carnivore, I'm guessing.
That's pretty funny. I tried when we first started. Now his previous wife was a vegetarian mm-hmm. or a vegan. And so on my watch, he lost an extra 10 pounds that I thought he was carrying anyway. And he was very carb centric, fish centric. So when he came to me, I was keto, and that was like almost 18 years ago now. And I got him switched away from being addicted to restaurants because I am a cook. And so got him hooked on home cooking and more meat centric, but with a lot of vegetables and fruits for him. So when I went carnivore, I'm like, well, it would be great for him too. And he immediately lost too much weight. So I had to pack some fruit in with him, and that worked. And he does fine on it. Lost some of his joint pain. He did better, but started complaining about that he loves flavor and wants variety and flavor. And I'm like really frustrated because carnivore is so easy. and simple. And there's just nothing to do but throw a steak on the grill. But he's fussing, and I'm a loving wife. So I make him separate food. But what I'll do is I'll take the parts of the animal that we have in the freezer that are tougher, the bigger, the chunks. I roast it, and then I throw it in the pressure cooker so it will shred. And then I'll make him a saucy, goopy, something with seasonings and, caramelized onions and cream and yogurt, because he can have dairy, and make it so he's happy. Or I'll make him a fish with a nice sauce, a creamy butter sauce. So I cook for him. I just cook separate. I don't eat what he eats, and that's okay.
Yeah.
That works for us.
Yeah. Well, you got to do what works for you. Just going back to, because now you're on a carnivore diet, and it sounds like, because you've always been, you said dealing with your health and trying all these things and supplements, and your diet, even your ketogenic diet, and before that, you were never eating a lot of junk food and sugar and processed food. It was always more whole food type of stuff. And then you eliminated those, what other people would say is a normal, healthy, balanced diet. That normal, healthy, balanced diet did not work for you. Is that fair to say?
It was limited. It worked somewhat.
Yeah.
It did some things. It took off some weight. It took down the amount of steroids I had to take, but there was still problems. So yeah, it wasn't until eliminating plants. A clue should have been back when I was in heavy supplementation. There are herbs that people love to take, like the adaptogenic herbs, for instance, like ashwagandha and ginseng and all that. They would make me crazy. And everybody, oh, they're so good. They're so healthy. They help you sleep. It would wire me and make my system go crazy. And that should have been a clue way back when. I just don't do well with plants, and probably never did. Yeah. But back to the question about junk food, I was raised on sugary cereals, like we all were in the 60s.
Yeah.
It was you not only had whatever they were, fruity pebbles or whatever, but then you added extra sugar on top of it. It was, so yeah, I wasn't raised well, but by the time I was a teenager, I was very health conscious and ditched all that.
Yeah. It's amazing. I looked at a statistic, and it showed that, compared to like 1820, the average American, in the last 50 years, gets a lifetime worth of sugar by the time they're 8 years old, compared to what they were eating, 150 years ago or so, 200 years ago. So, and yeah, it seems how that quickly, for a lot of people, if you're sensitive, it just destroys your gut and your health very quickly. And then you have a lifetime. It's a shame it took you, 60 years to finally get resolution, isn't it? But it's great that you found it, but
never. But yeah, we all look back and go, oh gosh, what would have happened? But things happen in their own time for their own reason, and I'm just blessed and feel amazed. And you, Shawn, and the Revero group has been a lifeline for me. And I know I travel a lot and I disappear a lot, but whenever I'm home, I try to be with you guys. And I even have the coaching package. I'd like to contribute and be a coach. I just need the time to, we're going to be gone for 2 months starting next week. And then when I get back, it's my intention to go through the coaching program so I can help get back.
Where are you going? Any place fun? Sounds.
I don't know. We're going to pick up our new member of our family, our new van again in Amsterdam. And from there, we don't like to plan where we go. We only have 2 months winter. So we're a little limited on what we can do, but I'll tell you when we get back.
Okay. Well, sounds like fun. Yeah. I did that once when I was between my first and second year of medical school. I went to Europe for about, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks, and just drove around and checked out all kinds of cool places. So it was kind of neat. So, it'll be interesting to see how you fare with your diet, because if you can't smuggle your freeze-dried meat into Europe, which I think there's restrictions on bringing meat across international borders for some reasons, right? You'll have to figure it out.
Package it, make nice label. I'm going to try. If they take it, they take it. Yeah. But I'll try. But, in the meantime, we will have cooking facilities in the van again. I'm going to get a grill, a small portable grill. As long as I can buy meat and cook meat and store meat in the refrigerator, I think I'll be okay because I just don't want to throw my health under the bus for the sake of traveling. And I think it will be challenging, but I'll do the best I can.
What's interesting, because you may know, in the Netherlands, which, or in Amsterdam, they have they've been going after the farmers pretty aggressively and trying to get them to shut down. And there's a bunch of push towards getting people to stop eating as much meat, apparently, for the environment, I think. So, and your thoughts on that? What do you think about if for somehow meat became unaffordable for you or unobtainable for you for some reason? They said, let's say 5 years from now, they said, well, we're going to have to put limits, and that's very plausible. They could do. You're only allowed to have, 4 pounds of red meat per week. How would that impact you?
I live in terror of that. Yeah. It's constantly on my mind. I try not to, read too much about it because it scares me. I'm not sure I would probably be a rebel enough to figure out a way to grow my own. Mm-hmm. I would just figure that out. Whatever it took, I would make sure. Otherwise, I can't go back. I think at this point, if I had to not eat meat, it would be a life. It would be devastating. So no, I'm not. Those are not happy thoughts, and shame on them for trying to go there and dictate what people eat. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, and like I said, for people like you and many others, and myself included, I think we all have to. We just can't just let whatever happen. We have to be active about it, and we have to sort of defend our ability to eat in a way that makes us the healthiest. And there are people and companies that don't really care and don't care about our health. So
as long as we have the ability to have private farms, if they can track you, if you go to the grocery store and, for your quotas, as long as you have the ability to either grow it yourself or buy from somebody who does, we'll be okay. Because I think in any restrictive society, you always have a black market. You always have an underground economy. And we found that even when we illegally visited Cuba, back when it was illegal to go to Cuba, we went from Mexico in, and we found that people just do things underground. And I think you'll always find that. And if that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. And
yeah, interesting. I mean, with increased digital surveillance, it becomes harder and harder, I think, for that to happen. But anyway, hopefully we won't get to that. Kat, we're running out of time. This has been wonderful, and I didn't know all the story that you had, so I'm glad you got to share this. You're not much of a social media person, are you? Are you on social media with accounts or anything like that?
We have a rather large, extensive blog, and I had a couple books published, but my publisher went belly up, so they're in the transition right now. But we have a travel website with our blog that is charlottemiles.com, which is Charlotte is our Volkswagen bus that we travel in here. So Charlotte, CHARLOTT, and then AMILES. So charlottemiles.com is our website. And you can reach me there. For this trip in Europe, I'm not sure, blogging takes an extreme amount of time and effort because we're both writers and photographers. So we do a lot and it takes a lot. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but if you go to that website, you can sign up for at least our email notifications. And I have an Instagram account and Facebook that we occasionally, and I might focus a little bit more on Instagram on this trip. So it's Nedkat, NEDKAT Bacon, is our Instagram. And you can, if we decide to do anything, you'll find it in one of those 3 places. And I will, if I do it, I will include Carnivore in a lot of what I say just to get the message out.
All right. Well, I've just went and followed you on Instagram there. So
you'll see very little.
There's only a couple, there's only a few posts there. So that's okay though. But anyway, it's great to anyway. Great to have you,
So-
Kat. Thank you. Good luck on your trip. Tell us about it when you get back. Thanks so much for doing this. This is, I'm sure this will definitely inspire a number of people because this is a great story. All right.
I hope so. All right. Thanks, you guys.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll be back tomorrow, guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.